Hello, and welcome back to the Modeling Success in Action podcast. I'm your host, Jessica, and today I am joined by Mallory Meyer. So, Mallory is the founder of White Wolf Reiki and a guide for high capacity leaders, creatives, and entrepreneurs who are stretched thin and stuck in overdrive. Blending nervous system regulation, subconscious repatterning, and energy work, she helps people dissolve outdated patterns and reconnect to who they are beneath pressure and expectations. A former HR leader and 2 times Disrupt HR speaker, Mallory bridges science, somatics, and intuition to create real, sustainable transformation rooted in safety, not striving. Oh, I love that. Safety, not striving. Oh, welcome to the show,
Thank
Mallory.
you. So looking forward to being here and just really appreciate your invitation to be so.
Yeah. I'm happy that we're finally sitting down. And the way that I met Mallory was actually through we were both speaking at a women's event, two separate pieces of the series, but I was there to support a girlfriend, Jen Thacker, and she's been on the show a few seasons ago. And I was actually just at her luncheon today. And her thing for
Amazing.
this year is that she's going to be allowing rather than pushing, right? She's going, I'm stepping out of the masculine and into the feminine. So the energy for this conversation is just bubbling. It's like it's ready.
So beautiful. And I love that too, that you were at her luncheon today, just like being able within that network of like community. And then, of course, meeting together where we had both spoken. I think it was like Low Entropy,
Yeah.
that nonprofit foundation. So, yeah, it was so brilliant just to kind of meet you there and have you in the audience and just recognize the like mindedness in the synergies of our work, which is so profound. And I think speaks a lot to how we can go about modeling success and really rewiring our brain.
Yeah. And speaking of modeling, right? Of course, the journey always starts from, the person that's sitting across from me here, right? And so, you know, eh, often I find that people, especially in our space, they come to this space because some of us maybe are born to it and it's a calling, but some of us got here because we needed it, right? Like it was an internal thing. So for you, how did you end up, repatterning and using the nervous system and using these somatic techniques to, and even the energetic work? How'd you get here, Mallory?
I think I might need to give the Coles Note
Yeah.
version, but I do love to say that it all kind of like when we open our own awareness, which is like kind of bringing in and ties into a lot of the conversation again today around can we be aware and are we noticing things in our environment and in our experiences and just how beautifully we can be so guided when we take a pause to recognize that. It started with energy work for me. And this is where also like my business name, just being White Wolf Reiki, it's such a foundation to what I do because it was truly the catalyst which allowed me to open up my own awareness into finding these NLP, like the neuro linguistic programming, practitioner training, and understanding more about hypnotherapy and then EFT, but not to kind of just skip over the whole energy work in itself. That was ultimately, it's surreal to actually say it right now because I know we're closing up on the snake year. And so it was pretty much a decade ago where I had stumbled upon Reiki. I was going through my own shedding, clearing a lot, went to Nicaragua, had some very physical pain in my body, and was coming out of a very emotional relationship. And there was someone there, and they were like, yeah, you can get a massage or you can get Reiki. And I was like, I've never heard of Reiki in my life. What is this? Like, tell me more. Went for my session, and I still find it very hard to bring into words what exactly transpired through that because it alleviated the pain. It brought through such granule, but at the same time, profound transformation of just that shift in my own energy that I went home to Toronto where I was living at that moment. And I was just like, I need to find my Reiki master. I need to dive into this more. And that's really what embedded that journey of kind of a few years after when I moved out to BC. That's ultimately when I came across the certification program into the work with the subconscious. And it was just so beautifully blended because it encompassed emotional freedom technique, neurolinguistic programming, all the good stuff and all the good somatic pieces, which then led me to polyvagal theory because I was recognizing there's only so much within our mind that we can start to change, but we need to bring the body on board.
But yeah.
So it was just this beautiful blend and this beautiful journey and kind of brought that to a hiatus of learning, I would say, from like a not necessarily learning because the learning never stops, but more so the accreditations and the certifications ended a couple years ago where I was like, I feel very, very complete. But that's kind of like that in a nutshell. I would say it was more of a personal element that catapulted me into the work. And then it's just been such a joy being in that background with human resources, really kind of picking up and weaving how it's so transferable as well into an organizational space and how it's also not necessarily championed in an organizational space. And we can really bring it back to these simplistic tools to make such a different shift and ripple in the environment with others and their experiences too, which I'm very passionate about doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because I mean, like, as humans, our nervous system is sending us these signals all day, every day. And in this world that we're living in, we've learned to interpret them in kind of interesting ways sometimes, right? And like and use different methods to cope with them based on what's allowed. Like I had somebody I was chatting with the other day and they're like, I worked in kitchens. Like I worked in it like and kitchens are a pretty high pressure environment. And she's like, and the only way you were allowed to take a break is if you were a smoker. Like if you were a non-smoker, why would you go outside? Why would you ever relieve yourself for a second and take a break? Why would you breathe? Like why? And as humans, like the nervous system is saying, go move, like go,
Mhm.
shift your energy, go breathe, go take a break, right? Like disengage from what you're doing, right? We can only like focus for so long before it's like, hey, like what's happening? And so like to feel the need to like do that or like people who are snacking to soothe the nervous system or like what a really cool thing that I heard from a nutritionist once is she's like if you're craving crunchy foods like that's a sign that you want your nervous system wants to downregulate because it's like it activates the vagal like the vagus nerve
Mhm.
have the crunchy
Yeah.
like that's so interesting. So once you had that experience of the energy and like shifting your energy, how did you like
Mhm.
how did that translate to like your everyday life? How did you start to apply it to the way that you shift your energy, your nervous system? What does that look like for you?
For me specifically, it's really about honoring my needs in such a more communicative way with my own boundaries and a greater sense of my own identity, to be honest. So, especially when it came into the energetic worth, the work, and the word worth just came out because it was about self worth. And I hadn't necessarily defined that for myself in the initial phases. And especially, I'll say it both from like a corporate standpoint in my relationships, and then even to have the courage and also the clarity and the certainty about how I wanted to build my own business that wasn't necessarily sparked within me. And so it really started to bring me back into like the truth, which I always like to say is it's always a remembering. It's never necessarily about we need to add more, but what are those dormant pieces that need to become awoken again? And can we feel then safe enough when we blend the nervous system to actually express that? And really feel like grounded and stable in what we are bringing forward within our gifts because they are so unique and multidimensional too. So that's ultimately how it kind of flowed. And really, when I now look at it from the corporate standpoint, it's addressing this element of there are what you were just mentioning about like the person that worked in the kitchen and they could only go out for a break if they smoked, but it's also this element of like, we all will find our different ways to soothe. And for some, that might be, I do need to get outside. I do need to go for a walk. Some might be, I just need to kind of lower the lights in my office or close the door and just like have 5 minutes just to meditate, to recenter and reground. And then others, it actually might be like the visceral kind of experience where they need to shake it off. So it's really just becoming more astute and attuned into like back to like what are my needs and what are those resources that I can help to allow myself. I always visualize like a ladder. So if I'm coming down the ladder in my fight or flight, how swiftly can I bring myself back up to the top of the ladder in my prefrontal cortex in that place of regulation? Because again, that in itself will just allow that stage to be so beautifully presented of like, I'm going to have regulated relationships. I'm going to have regulated experiences and communication. So why wouldn't I want to choose to be regulated here?
Yeah, right. I mean, being regulated is, I feel like, something that is almost like a mythical, like, wouldn't that be so great that like people kind of like laugh at it these days. Like, and really it's totally possible, but it's like the willingness to level about what you actually need in those moments instead of reaching for those quick fixes. Right?
For sure, and to me, like, when you're in regulation in that term, which is really just you're in a place of a homeostasis and you're allowing yourself to have the prefrontal cortex activated, this is where you can really reshape the lens of your reality because you're starting to become more curious. And it's always just like, is the rose-colored glasses on, or is it maybe a little bit of a darker hue for you right now? And that could just be from something so subtle again of experience in your environment that's creating a signal of threat. So you're kind of going into a fight or flight or maybe even a freeze, depending how deep that experience could be.
Yeah. So when you say the lens, like you're talking about
Mm.
like the state of mind that you're in, the state of body that you're in is impacting the way you're looking at the world. Is that what you mean by that?
1,000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interpreted it beautifully well. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yes.
Okay,
That's
perfect.
exactly what I mean.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to me because someone who would be in maybe a dysregulated state, like not necessarily it's recognizing that they're seeing the same experience as you, but if you're someone who's in regulation and then you talk about what did you just witness, it will be very vast and different because this is also where the narrative of the mind and your beliefs can start to shift too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
It's that when you said that, it makes me think of like when you read Google reviews and you see like a one-star Google review and it's clearly somebody who is just having a bad day and like it has nothing to do with the restaurant, right? Like I read one and it was like I was in Mexico and I was going on a like an excursion with my husband and we were looking at the tour company and this tour company had like four stars, and you're in Mexico, you're like that's great. That's really, great review. And I'm looking at them and they're all like, you're just saying, what it is. And then this one, you get to this one-star review and she's going, and they didn't have napkins. and and they wanted me to wear a life jacket. And they're like, you're like,
Oh, that's
clearly,
such a good analogy for it though.
yeah. You
Yeah.
just look at the world like it's like out to get you when you're feeling, when you're angry and defended, right? Even though
Mhm.
it's just totally fine, right? Yeah.
Completely. It's the victim hat that can quickly go on to be like,
Yes.
"Woe is me." But
Exactly.
how quickly we can reframe and that again would come through, like, the curiosity and, like, "Oh, I can catch this thought. I can catch this state, and this isn't me, so I'm gonna switch it, and I'm gonna bring this resource in to help to support me to do so."
Yeah. Yeah. I think for
Mhm.
me, that was really my aha, my light bulb moment when I entered the world of hypnosis. I went to see a hypnotist and it 180'd my stress levels. And it was like that I
Mhm.
could let go of that victim, the righteous indignation, right? Like that like
Mhm.
entitlement and anger, that I was carrying around, right? I would have been and they
Yeah.
didn't give me napkins, like
How dare they when I drove here?
yeah. I mean, look, it's true. I went on the excursion. You know what? They didn't, but we were eating ceviche in the sand and like we were standing by the ocean and I'm like, you don't need a napkin. Like
Completely. Go wash your hands in the
bathing
ocean.
suit.
Right.
Like
The practical the practical element of that is
yeah.
just, yeah, the context of it all.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So then for somebody who is like me, right, that feels stuck in stress or survival mode and they're in this state of dysregulation that's causing the world to feel like a problem. So
Mm.
what like how can they start to change that lens for themselves?
Yeah, I would say, there's 3 different things I would offer here that's coming just to mind. They're very quick little things. Like, the first one is also just getting curious, and if someone's listening and they're comfortable to even bring themselves into the state of one where they're noticing, "Yes, I'm stressed." Like, I feel activated, I feel triggered, and what I would suggest and offer to you is to actually complete a statement here that says, when I feel like this, the world is dot, dot, dot. So just complete that sentence because it's going to give you a little bit of already evidence in how you're seeing the world. So the world is, I'm just going to use the example of like gloomy. The world is scary. The world is out to get me, whatever that sentence could be. And then I would encourage this individual to also then bring themselves, maybe through these tools that I'm just about to share, into a place of safety, into that place of regulation, and revisit that sentence. So when I feel this way, the world is peaceful. The world is beautiful. It could be, right? It's just, again, your word choice to bring in that awareness more quickly. So when you're out and about, you can catch yourself to be like, oh, I can see how the world is scary right now. I know I'm in a place of now fight or flight through that statement. So it's just like a little quick application. And then what I was going to suggest more of a somatic quick shift. Again, when I visualize a ladder, and if you find yourself going down this ladder, you're getting into fight or flight, we want to come back up our ladder into a spot of like regulation. One of the things that's very simple, especially when you're welcomed into a new environment, anytime you're in an office or anytime you go into a new vicinity, a restaurant, just take literally 15 seconds. And it's a practice just called orienting. So it's scanning from one side of the room to the next. And as you're slowly scanning with your eyes, just kind of recalling what you're seeing. Maybe it's the exit door. Maybe it's a nice lush plant that's soothing your nervous system. Just like these little cues that through your whole time and your whole experience in that spot, you can come back to those cues because you've already anchored and communicated to your nervous system that this is something that is akin, that this is something that kind of creates a sense of calm for me. This is a familiar face I see sitting over there. And again, it allows us just to kind of have more fluidity and movement through our states. But if someone is like, just like, I just need a quick shift right now, what I love is something called the butterfly tap. And so, whether you can see me on video or not, it's really just taking your two thumbs and crossing them over your collarbone and just tapping left to right, left to right. And you can do this for about 30 seconds to a minute. I'm already going to start to yawn because anytime I start to engage with my vagus nerve, this is like my communication if I'm already starting to feel safe because I can yawn, I can burp, I can laugh. And it's just such a little beautiful, subtle way that's not shaking our bodies or like really jumping around. That's going to help to self soothe us to bring us back up our ladder.
Yeah, and for you, because you're doing it so often, it's an anchor, right? Every time you do it, your brain's like, "Okay, it's time to relax," right?
This is exactly it. Where
Yeah.
I'm like, don't mind me yawning, but it's the repetition.
Yeah, yeah, it is.
Not that I'm bored here. Yeah.
I could see it right away. That's so interesting. And I love the
Yeah.
cue
Mhm.
of like when you walk into the room and doing the room scan, because I mean I'm sure it you're realizing, and those of you who are listening, this is an NLP thing, right? We're using our eyes, right? It's a visual thing. So, it's when our eyes are pointed down, we can get into stress, we can get into our head. When we lift them up, when we're looking upwards, when we're scanning the room, right? It's a signal even to our nervous system that we're okay, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So,
exactly.
yeah, very cool. Very cool. I love that technique. So you mentioned like the coming home, the feeling safe in your nervous system, right? So
Mhm.
if people like are not used to feeling safe in their nervous system, like do you ever find that when you're helping somebody into that space that it's uncomfortable for them to downregulate, to relax?
Absolutely, because it's almost like our because someone's been so wired to, let's say, chaos. I see this a lot, and it's even something that's been embedded in myself of like, if you've grown up in a household that had a lot of chaos, it's almost like we want to seek that out because that's our definition of safety. So it starts with really with like that compassionate observation and that piece again of the awareness because we can start to recognize where am I now self-sabotaging this element of peace that wants to be invited forward and what's the behavior that I might be indulging in that actually isn't necessarily serving me but it's really just this embedded pattern. And I can start to, again, call out in a sense your nervous system to be like, I understand why you love the sensation so much, but this doesn't need to be you anymore. And the more that we can start to gently build upon and compound on like safe activities or more moments of those somatic pieces to invite in, the more it's going to start to observe, okay, now this is an experience that's more familiar to me. And I can start to like get more acquainted to it and rest in it, but it is like, it's not just like an overnight success, as we know, like, same as like with hypnosis. You need to re-listen sometimes to your hypnotherapy sessions because the subconscious is doing the work behind the scenes, and it's just not gonna be a light switch type of moment.
I mean,
But I
hypnosis
think that
is about
vulnerability, yeah.
repetition, right? It's all about
Yeah,
repetition. That's how we learn anything, right?
completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's something that I'll always kind of just advocate and stress when working with individuals of I will always wanna have our inner critic kind of be on the spotlight there at times, but where we can find the compassion to bring that forward and just recognize again, this is where we can start to also work on past beliefs and past also just like, I do a lot of work like with timeline experience. So going back and recognizing where did I pick this up and how can I start to create new meaning from this experience too? Where that will also help to support someone in changing their nervous system and repatterning it.
Yeah, it's interesting too. When you say changing the story of it, I'm just thinking if we're doing timeline work, if you were in if you were in a state where you were in dysregulation and the world was scary at the time that the thing happened, but you can go back and look at it from a place where the world is beautiful, right? Where you're grounded and you're feeling relaxed, how different could that event look, right? How
But it's
different
been
could the
like,
meaning be? Yeah.
yeah, it makes my heart skip a beat sometimes just to see that shift on a like a somatic, visceral level with clients because it is so powerful. And it's like that aha moment, that light bulb to be like, oh my gosh, like I just see it from back to the lens, like you just said. It's just like such a different perception in how it's being interpreted.
I love it. Yeah. That's funny though, because like even when you have like a small technological blip, right? Already, my brain is shifting my focus, right? Like it's almost like I was so
Mhm.
focused with the eyes that the ears like shut down for a second and then the heart rate goes up, right? And then you come back and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, what's happening? Right. So like in an instant, your nervous system can like shift and switch and go somewhere else. So
For
yeah.
sure.
Something I've noticed
Mhm.
about you as we've been having this call is how slowly you speak. And yeah, but it's not a bad thing. Like you're not speaking so slowly that I'm like, "Come on, Mallory, let's go." But the measure of the pace of your speaking is
Mm.
indicative of, I would imagine, the relaxation in your nervous system, right? Because when we
Mhm.
speak quickly, sometimes it's because we are like wound up, right? And it's like we just go. And I find myself doing that sometimes too. I get very excited, and there's a fine line between excitement and stress. Right. And for me, I'm having fun with it. But if it goes on for too long, it stresses the body. And so I'm really appreciating how slowly and measured you're speaking. Is that how it's always been, or is this after the energy work?
After the energy work, and, it's funny that you bring that up. It's it's gonna make me blush, and it even might make me emotional a little bit because I actually grew up very self-conscious of my voice. I went to go see a speech language pathologist, and one of the biggest hindering pieces of me starting a business was the thought that I would have to speak and I'd have to publicly speak. And I know when we were talking about how we met, it was through a speaking event. And that was a massive growth edge for me. Um, and this is also where retraining the brain, and when I say retrain, it was more from even the simplistics of visualization, of seeing myself communicate effectively and communicate clearly, but I am very, very aware of how I speak. And whether that's to a deficit or a benefit, sometimes we'll never know. But I do appreciate you saying that just because, again, it's always been something so deeply embedded in my core from a very young age and that I've struggled with. And then the energy work just helped to recognize I don't need to hide anymore. My voice is worth hearing. And really, again, that confidence boost, like the continual repetition, whether it was hypnosis, EFT, energy, everything in between, the visualization, it all came together to support to where I am now. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and it's kind of beautiful. I'm so glad that you chose to share that story, right? Because it really can model to people that we can even change the view that we have about the things of ourselves that we have no control over. Like we can't change like the voice. You can change the intonation, the inflection, but like the mechanics of your vocal cords are the mechanics of your vocal cords. Your voice is going to sound like your voice is going to sound, right? Like it just is. And
Absolutely.
right? It's kinda like the color of your eyes or the color of your eyes, like, that's the way that it is.
Mhm.
And so being able to have peace with that and to have acceptance and so that you can just do what you need to do, right?
Mm,
Yeah, and
mhm.
and rock it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
because
been a journey,
I'm finding it
definitely.
soothing to listen to this lovely measured pace that you have.
Well, it's definitely taken work, but I really do appreciate that and, like, receiving it to my heart because, yeah, it's I put a lot of work into it and being able to express and speak to this way.
Mhm. Awesome. So I just caught a glimpse of the time here, and so I know we're running out. So before I wrap this amazing conversation that could go on for hours up, I want to ask you: is there anything like for those people who are listening and they're going, "Oh, I'm very curious about the threads that we're pulling on in Mallory's version of the world." If they wanted to step into your shoes, if they wanted to start to experience what it's like to be you, where would they start?
The simplest way, and then what's coming just, like, right in is more so around that visualization piece because it's so accessible to us all. And I don't know if you've been watching the Olympics at all, but, her name was Val, and she won bronze medal for the 3,000 meters. And in her interview, she was talking about how she visualized being on the podium. And it brought chills to my body because I was like, here is such a perfect example of, again, a resource that we can all bring into our lives so simply, but it also requires some work because it is asking of us to have that clarity about what is it that we want. And it might seem scary and we might not know the how, but can we diminish that and just start to like bring the vision forward each and every day? Because then we can start to show up and have different behaviors on an unconscious level that will help to move that needle forward. So, again, practical, nothing that you need to overly invest in. And if you have a very good clairvoyant visual self and you like to meditate, bring in some visualization.
Yeah, yeah, the visualization, like, and the being single-minded, deciding what it is, and then focusing and focusing and focusing, right? Because she didn't see herself losing the race and then winning the race. She just saw herself on the podium every single time, right? Like it was a
Exactly.
clear, single-minded vision, and
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I actually heard that
Love.
interview. I don't normally watch, but I listen. I listen, so I heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't been keeping up that much, but that it was just again like how I was guided to catch that one piece. And
Mhm.
I was like, how applicable is this? And yeah, it's one of those feelings and sensations where it becomes so real in that vision that you almost don't even recognize at times in your reality that it's appeared. And that's kind of like the seamless beauty of it all too. It's like, oh, I did end up having a beautiful view out my window of the mountains that is like bathed in trees, and that's all I focused on for so many months. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really beautiful to kind of have those experiences and practice with it.
Fabulous. So I think that that is a wonderful place to leave it there. And for those of you who tuned in, if you want to be
Mhm.
connected up with Mallory, I'm going to put all of her details below in the caption here, so you can reach out to her. And thank you so much for sharing this space, this time with me.